Welcome back to Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me in the studio, I have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Director General, Bolitac Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies, University of Lagos, Nigeria. And Dr. Ndidi Nwaneri, Public Policy Consultant and Visiting Scholar, Loyola University, Chicago, United States. Well, Professor Ariole, let me start with you. We've had that long conversation with Dr. Michael Ozekhome, SAN, and he has raised a lot of issues from the Asaba Concordia, as he called it, of the 17 southern governors of Nigeria, all the way to the mistake of 1914 and what the future portends. Within that polarity, there is quite a number of issues. What are some of the very important issues that you think he has addressed?
No, he has really done a lot. And I think he deserves to be called a fellow of Historical Society of Africa. Indeed, he tried. And what I'm trying to see from his own perspective is that true federation is indeed what we are seeking for. Nigeria is just a young country, I agree, compared to how countries like Britain and France grew to become what they are today. They strive to have a converging culture, a culture that all of them agree to, that is helping them to be what they are today. Even as of today, Britain is talking of devolution of power to Northern Ireland, Wales, and Scotland. It's still work in progress. My only worry is that, you see, it seems people are looking at only 8%, as Chief Ozekhome just mentioned. 8% of the population. The Fulani people they are not even up to 8% if I should regulate out very well mathematically. You know, and they are now becoming a group that is disturbing over 370 ethnic group in Nigeria. People should think about it. It's like an adage in Igbo that says, so when you take children to the farm, you know, when one of them is tired, he will create a problem that will become very, very noticeable to everybody, and the work will not progress any longer. So it's better we look at it from that perspective. It seems we have brought into power, you know, a group or somebody who is now trying to prove to us that the time to work is no more there. It's time to war, and, you know, distract the progress of Nigeria. And people should not see it that way. And I'm very, very worried also about the National Assembly, people at the National Assembly. Because if 17,000 governors should come and have a meeting, which means the people they have sent also at the National Assembly should support them. And from that support, Nigeria will now be saying, look, there is need for us to have national dialogue, as they said. And I don't see why the president of the Senate should come out and be castigating those people. He has no right at all. And it is time for those people in the National Assembly to think of who is this National Senate president that he should be talking for them, which means there is something wrong that has to be told about him also. And I want further to see that the Supreme Court come out to tell us what is it that is required to make the governors true chief security of their states. Because if they have right to security votes, they're supposed also to have right to security obligation. And that obligation is what will require now for the Supreme Court to state. And I want them to take the federal government to Supreme Court. Let Supreme Court interpret to Nigerians what it means to be a governor of a state and what it means to be the chief security officer of a state. And there we will now come for a convergence level and say, look, this is what is supposed to be a governor of a state, not just governor waiting for this federal government to send the military or to send police to regulate what happens in your state in terms of security. It cannot work, and that is why I'm so interested in what he mentioned about fiscal federalism and also confederation, if we should go further, because confederation is what Switzerland is practicing. And what it means by confederation, some Swiss people don't even know their president, because the president of Switzerland comes only once in a year. His tenure is just 1 year. And after that 1 year is over, they are more interested in who is the chairman of their canton, simply called either chairman of a local government or even state governor, in effect. So I think we are just distracting ourselves by looking onto what the 8% of Nigerians having their mouthpiece as Miyetti Allah, bringing back to Nigerians to listen, which is very, very wrong. There is no need having Miyetti Allah as a mouthpiece that will be telling Nigerians what to do, when Fulanis are mere 8% of Nigerian population. And mind you, they are not only Nigerians, they are in other countries. They are in Niger, they are in Chad, they are in Mali, they are in Guinea, they are in Mauritania, they are in Senegal. Now, can't Nigerians think very well and say, if these people are not only in Nigeria, they are in Senegal, they are in Guinea, they are in Mali, they are in Niger, they are in Chad, they are in Cameroon, and they don't have such Miyetti Allah power in those areas, why can't Nigerian people reason very well and say, look, it is time to call the bluff of this group and find a way to forge ahead for a better Nigerian, which will also be good for the Fulani people. A strong and good Nigerian will be helpful for the Fulanis. And I know it's only in Nigeria that the Fulanis have a very, very strong mouthpiece and power. Wow. And so they should be interested in seeing that there is a progressive and a very, very solid Nigeria.
Professor Arele, I get your point. I'm going to go next to Professor Akintenwa, but I hope, ladies and gentlemen, will resist the temptation to turn the conversation into Fulani profiling, Fulani characterization, Fulani bashing. There are good people, there are bad people everywhere. Whoever is against, the state, well, may be guilty of criminality, and we deal with that. So we should avoid the temptation to descend into ethnic profiling. Professor Akintenwa, I come to you.
I do not deal with people. I deal with issues. But when the issue is about the people, there's no way you can run away from talking about the people. First of all, I agree with Ozekhome. One, he talked like an educated person, not as a learned person. Because this time, an educated person is the one who will bring historical dimensions, who will explicate the issues involved without sentiments, etc. As distinct from being a learned person who is seeking to justify wrongness of his client. Okay? So an educated man discusses on the basis of objectivity of purpose. Secondly, he described the Asaba Declaration, Asaba Agreement, as an accord concordia. I will call it Pacta Concordatum. In this particular case, you have a situation whereby the people acted on the basis of the sovereign will of the people. And they are not communicating that one to the generality, to the federal government. So it is more than just a simple accord concordia. Well, the use of the word concordia etymologically is simply saying that, look, you agree voluntarily, etc. But by the time you go beyond that, only to put in that one in black and white in print to make it an agreement that creates obligations, please, it becomes more significant. I agree with him. He said we are not a people that could be likened to the Bourbons. You know, like we have Palais Bourbon in France, where people do not learn anything and have not forgotten anything. This is taken for granted. You see, the general submission of Chief Ozekhome, when you raise the issue of dissolubility of Nigeria, negotiability of Nigeria's national unity, I cannot agree more with him. You see, people cannot easily differentiate between theoretical provisions and empirical realities. The beauty can be there where it is stated the unity of Nigeria is not negotiable. If it is not negotiable, theoretically, when you put the people to the world, he gave a number of examples. Soviet Union, Yugoslavia, Sudan, Ethiopia, they are there. They were united. Even United Nations does not want any constitutive part of a member state to be dissociated, to be disunited from the main body. But the truth is that when you have situations of insecurity, injustice, inequity all along, people decide to liberate themselves. More significantly, what do you want to do with the principle of self-determination? The rule of self-determination began, first of all, as a colonial issue. When, for instance, the United States will even spearhead the struggle against colonialists, that, look, every group of people, any stratum of society must have the right to determine how such a group of people who want to live is there. And in the post-independence era, too, it has almost become a peremptory norm of international law, according to which now, for instance, please, self-determination you cannot just jettison and set aside. And in this particular case, what we are witnessing is that people are now agitating on the basis of self-determination. So all the points raised by Ozekhome, I wouldn't say there's any footnote or endnote to it. The only addendum to add there is that for as long as any federal government will want to operate on the basis of what Ahmadu Bello said in 1960, according to which other part of Nigeria will be their service area that they are supposed to rule, and on the basis of Beyoku's submission in the Senate in 1961, to which I have drawn attention to, saying that, look, at the end of the day, a country whereby you are giving preferential treatment to a particular group of people, to the Fulanis, a situation whereby you are forcing people who have been allocated houses in Lagos, you remove them and you replace them with the Fulani people. There is no way order and counter-order will not continue to amount to disorder. It's as simple as that. So what we are talking about in Nigeria, nobody is against Fulani as a person. We are against what a Fulani man is doing. And in this case, when we are talking about Fulani and people are generalizing, the issue is that, look, why is it that President Muhammadu Buhari is sleeping when they are complaining bitterly of what some constitutive people of Nigeria are doing? This is the issue. So nobody has animosity against Fulani people. Let us be very frank about this thing. We are dealing with issues. We are talking about killing of people. And people now, because the government does not want to listen, why is it difficult for Buhari to respond to Olusegun Obasanjo's observation that Buhari's administration has a Fulanization agenda? Why are they keeping quiet? Now, these governors say that they are placing ban on open grazing. What is wrong with it? Ozekhome reminded us that they started talking about it in the north. And now that they are reacting, they are now saying we should be taking lessons. No, please, let us be more serious than ever before.
On that note, Prof, we'll take a short break. When we return, Dr. Nwaneri, I'll come to you for your comments on this subject. We take a quick break now here on Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show. When we return, the conversation will continue. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. As you have with me, Professor Bola Akintenwa, Professor Victor Siariole, and Dr. Ndidi Nwaneri. Dr. Nwaneri, before the break, I said I was going to come back to you. Quo vadis Nigeria? That's the question.
Okay, so I'm going to be the dissenting voice. I do... On a certain level, I agree with what is being said, but I feel that the way we are approaching the challenge, I don't even know if we can say the challenge with regards to a country as complex as Nigeria. You can't say the challenge, right? Every society has its own challenges. Ethnic groups really, there's this thing about human beings where we tend to detest the other, right? The other is the cause of our problems. The other is the one that did it. They're doing it wrong. One of the things I'd like to remind Nigerians is that, first of all, I always emphasize that I grew up in the South. I am from the southern part of Nigeria. There's nobody I know that breeds cows. And there's nobody I know that is a vegetarian either. So what that means is that when we talk about a certain ethnic groups or we talk about Fulani people, they don't just, there's an exchange going on. There's a function that these people carry out. Anytime this issue is raised, the issue of grazing, the issue of land rights, the issue of fight for resources, I keep saying my frustration with Nigeria is that the way we approach issues is that we cut it off from the top. My problem is that, do we ever talk about global warming? Do we ever talk about restriction of resources? Do we ever talk about the different ways and possibilities of grazing? Do we talk about these issues in a complex manner? Or do we just get up and say that, oh, that person is not like me, they have done something wrong? I am frustrated with the artificial simplicity with which we approach some of our issues. There's an experiment I want everybody to carry out when they go home. The first young, educated Nigerian that you encounter, particularly if they're from southern Nigeria, ask them if they know the meaning of cattle rustling. You'll be shocked that they have no idea what this means, what the term even means, and they're educated. My problem is that we have a communication challenge. We have a challenge whereby leadership tends to take up issues based on sentiment, and they just rally people to them. So I feel that I want to ask Nigerians, are we really committed to addressing our challenges? Or are we just focused on making the other the villain? As we speak, yes, we're going to restructure. Yes, we're going to cut the country into maybe 1,000 little slices. But as we speak, we have not done that yet. If you want to upset a Nigerian, ask him of any strain, any group. Ask him that this thing that you are talking about, please, what is the plan? What is my action point? When I get to my house tomorrow morning, what do you want me to do? You'll find that there's no plan. It's all sentiment and hatred. And, oh, I don't like the other. They are the ones that did us. Oh, they've taken all of our, and there's no content to it. One of the things that I'm impressed about with our guest is that he gave us this, maybe it's because he's a learned fellow. I was really tripped and I was impressed because he kept on reeling off these years of the Constitution, the Constitution that did this, the one that did that, the one that did that. He's one of the few Nigerians that understands the implications of where we are with regards to the Constitution. The people that want us to split the country, now don't get me wrong, we can split the country into as many bits and pieces as we want. My challenge is, what is the content of this thing? What are we looking for? Even somebody mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was you, sir, or if it was our guest, somebody said something that I thought was striking, which is, what is our relationship with the people that make our laws? Do we know the name? So this thing about splitting country is very, very nice to say. But is it the same person that in the last 40 years has not known the name, speak less of how to get in touch with his senator? What is going to happen to him when they split the country? What? By osmosis, he will automatically learn how to be a citizen of a democracy? Is that what is going to happen? So my challenge is that I don't know if we have thought through the content. Then the last thing I'd like to say is about this issue of unity. The mere fact that we have split ourselves into different groups does not mean that we are not united. This terminology, which is part of the scam of saying unity as euphemism for bondage, I don't agree with it. The mere fact that we're from different local government areas or we're from different regions of the country does not mean that we cannot cooperate. I like the description Professor Ariole brought up, where you have different groups under a unified cover. That is also an option. My problem is that there's too much emotion thrown into this. There's too much sentiment thrown into this. And I promise you, a country of 200 million people, there's no way.
Well, Dr. Wanere, I need to move on. Dr. Wanere, what you've done is to problematize the
yes,
subject
that is what I
a bit further. But
yes.
the questions arising therefrom, they're not questions we can cover in a television program of just 2 hours. So we need to move on now. We take our next topic, but I'm sure our viewers will join in the conversation.
We'll allow reaction to Ndidi's good
No,
points.
we don't
Anyway,
have time.
okay,
We need to move on. This is a subject for a seminar, but we are not conducting a seminar on TV.
Yes,
We're just raising issues. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved new security measures for the Southeast and South-South regions. The regions have been witnessing attacks on security officials and facilities in the last few weeks. At the meeting, which held 24 hours after reports of attempted burglary within the precincts of the presidential villa, the National Security Council drew up strategies to urgently address the security challenges. The measures were, however, not made available to the media.
The Security Council meeting, which has taken place 3 times within the last 11 days, has assessed the situation in the country, particularly in the southeast and south-south, as it affects law and order, and we have some measures that has been approved by council to take. We have outlined, and it has been approved by the council, and we will see how we can change the narrative within the.
Well, Dr. Wanere, let me come back to you. New security measures for the South-South-Southeast, and we don't know the details. As the people of Nigeria, don't we have the right to know? Should there be security measures, different security measures for different parts of the country that are shrouded in secrecy?
So Nigeria faces a very deep policy challenge. So when I say that, they say that when you see yourself as a hammer, everything becomes a nail. There is a policy challenge, and part of the challenge is not just what is done, but how you are seen to be acting. I keep carrying the federal government's fight. I'm always doing Voltron for them and saying that no, when you're a leader, you are responsible for that. You can't attribute tribalism to leadership. There's a level you get to where you stop being tribalistic. But we have a unique problem. And that unique problem is that one fine day. Now, again, please don't tell me I'm problematizing, because I'm going to open up a can of worms. The first one is, by the time you are burning up all your security apparatus in a particular region, I'd like to tell the people doing that a bad police station is better than a no police station. But I'm not going to go there. That wasn't the question. The question is, how do you tell us that you have set up security measures, then you tell us that we cannot know the content? Please, why did you invite us to the meeting in the first place? It's almost as if you are saying to us, well, I'm going to do something, but I can't tell you about it. I don't know if that was strategic. I don't know if that was strategic. I don't know if that encourages the housewife in a place like Anambra State to say, oh, the state is looking out for me. So what I want to ask the state is, what were you trying to accomplish by that? I don't know what you achieved. But whatever it is you achieved, I don't know if it was positive by making that utterance. Now, I'm not saying that you should tell me, but why did you invite me to the meeting in the first place? Then you come out of the meeting and say, sorry, we can't tell you the content. The content could be to blow up Wedral Road, for all we know, right? And we're allowed to think the worst because you didn't tell us. So why did you tell us you had a meeting? I really don't get it.
Well, I mean, there are many, persons in the Southeast who are even arguing that in that room, the meeting that was held, if you look at the attendance list, there was nobody from either the South-South or the Southeast in the meeting. And then you took a decision about the security of people in the Southeast. But we'll take another short break. When we return, Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show, will continue. Stay with us. Welcome back to Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, I have Professor Bola Akinterenwa, Director General, Bulitak Center for International Diplomacy and Strategic Studies. Professor Victor Ariole, Professor of French and Francophone Studies at the University of Lagos, Nigeria, and Dr. Ndidi Wanere, Public Policy Consultant and visiting scholar, Loyola University, Chicago. Well, Professor Ariole, let me come to you very quickly. New security measures for the Southeast and the South-South, the details of which remain unknown.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, if the governors of Southeast and South-South are not aware of the new details, then it's like declaring state of emergency. The federal government has simply decided there is need to declare state of emergency in Southeast and South-South. And this again is what I'm saying. The governor should wake up and ask the whole Nigeria, or go to Supreme Court and say, wow, are we now castigated or castrated? Are we not part of the Nigerian Federation? That somebody should sit in Abuja and we are not consulted and we are not part of the meeting, and agreement has been reached on how to handle us without our knowledge. No, something has to be done. And it has to be done right now before it goes out of hand. Because when you decide to exclude them from what's supposed to be their rights as the chief security of their states, then something is wrong. Like Chief Ozekhome mentioned about Claude Ake. Claude Ake once said, if you are trying to propose a developmental suggestion for a given people and you don't involve them, you are excluding them and they will not be part of it and they will sabotage it. So it's like somebody said, you are just not addressing issues the right way they should be addressed. It's just so artificial and so, I don't know, simply, you just render it a simple issue. There is a problem, and the states in Southeast and South-South should ask the federal government, what is the new arrangement? But I'm only pleading with them, with those people operating there as either proscribed IPOB or ECED or Ebubago, to don't really go to the soldiers. Leave the soldiers alone. This is an internal issue. They should be confronting anybody that is not a military man brought into the system and say, look, we're supposed to know why we are now dealing on internal security issues, and now you are telling us that we should not know what is happening. That is where I am concerned. Soldiers should not be brought in, because soldiers are not meant to guide internal security issues. They are meant to think of us in terms of those trying to infiltrate Nigerian territory, like Boko Haram, like what is happening in Niger Republic, Niger, that is coming through Zamfara and Katsina. This is where the soldiers should go and see that they don't come in. But when it comes to internal issues, please, soldiers should not be allowed to intervene.
Okay.
And the governor should know exactly what the federal government wants to do in terms of bringing peace into those areas.
Okay, Prof. Point well made. Professor Akintenwa, very quickly, what's your take?
I think there is
I had to start with the stakeholders.
there is a need to differentiate between strategic measures and tactical measures. In terms of strategic measures, the governors may ask to know the contents, the details. But how you want to do your battle, you know quite well. It's just like when General Charles de Gaulle said the French lost the battle and not the war. He's only trying to differentiate between shooting war. You know, that's where battles come in. Now, the way Muhammadu Buhari will want to carry out the battle, he does not need to explain to anybody. Those who will be involved, either in terms of offensive, defensive strategy, defensive, offensive strategy, that, you know, the nitty-gritty of that one can be left to them. But the issue at stake is this. When some people will sit in the comfort of their office or homes and be condemning what the governors had done, it becomes ridiculous. But let me explain it this way. If, for instance, the governors are wrong, all right, by saying they are stakeholders, They are elected governors, and they should not be seen to be leading in the cause for restructuring, in the cause for anything. Nothing prevents the same governors. Since they say they are wrong, they are doing wrong thing. It is wrong for them to have provided leadership in the call for restructuring. It is also good for the governors to have recognized that what they are doing is bad, and to now ask all the bad, the evildoers to come together and discuss and dialogue and put an end to the wrongdoings. So in this case, you cannot condemn somebody who is trying to amend evil doing. And I think the issue can be set aside on that level.
Okay, I get your point, Prof. Let's take another subject, this time COVID-19. The Nigerian government last week announced a crackdown on coronavirus restrictions already in place, but not being adhered to. The government also reviewed its COVID-19 response and implemented stricter measures.
Nigeria has a nationwide nightly curfew from midnight to 4 a.m. The measure has been in place since 2020, but since case numbers have dropped in the country, people are becoming more relaxed. Other restrictions in place are the closure of nightclubs and recreational facilities. These rules are widely ignored, but now the government says that's going to change.
Effective from 0001 hours of Tuesday, 11th May 2021. This phase 4 of the first restriction of movement shall come into effect. We shall maintain restrictions on mass gatherings outside work settings with a maximum number of 50 people in any enclosed space. Approved gatherings must be held with physical distancing measures and other non-pharmaceutical interventions in place.
People in Nigeria are being warned to avoid large gatherings, especially with Eid approaching. It's hoped to avoid the situation in countries deteriorating.
The experience of other countries shows the unpredictability of COVID, such that countries in Asia, such as India, Pakistan, Thailand, have been badly shaken by the enormity of the new wave of infections they have suffered in the recent weeks.
But there is some good news. The cost of tests for travel to any ECOWAS country will now cost a maximum of $50. It's hoped that the move will help boost local economies.
The authority of ECOWAS heads of state and government has fixed the cost of COVID-19 testing, whether PCR or any other form of testing, antigen testing, at $50 at all points of entry with effect from 17th May 2021. This is to ease travel and trade among citizens of ECOWAS, states traveling within the region. This amount is only restricted to tests for ECOWAS citizens or people carrying ECOWAS traveling documents, and it is also only restricted to travels within the ECOWAS sub-region.
While Nigeria's case numbers remain low, the message from officials is clear. Now is not the time to be complacent.
Okay, Dr. Nwaneri, let me start with you. Phase 4 restrictions there. And we've been told also by observers that this has to do with the Indian variant of the coronavirus that has been observed in parts of Nigeria. And of course, the federal government has also placed restrictions on travels from India, from Brazil, from Turkey, and some other protocols have been put in place. Is the government responding early enough, or the government should have done more? Because some people were even saying that maybe the airports should have been shut down for at least 2 weeks to check further influx into Nigeria.
Thank you, Doctor. I don't want to open a can of worms here, but there are two things. I'm going to talk about 3 dimensions of the first is the policy dimension. The first thing I'd like to say is this is in novel. The term novel before COVID-19 is that it is a new virus. Nobody could have anticipated or is able to anticipate the direction it will turn. Second thing I'd like to say is that we are a young country. I went to some country and people that I was doing what I was doing with were not even thinking about collecting the vaccine, but we're doing, our vaccine cutoff is 60 because most of our elderly people die young. We're a young country, and that is part of the reason why we don't have high numbers. Having said that, ought implies can. Are we able to restrict the way we're being advised to? No, it is not possible. Our poverty rates are too high. The way we arrange ourselves is just ridiculous. You go to Balogu Market, how are people going to maintain social distancing? Your society is not structured like that. One of the things that I find really, really odd, however, is that I heard, I hope I got it wrong, that from level 12 down, we'll be working from home. It is part of the policy measures that has been put in place. Now, I am glad that the government is somewhat responsive, but what I'm trying to figure out is how that is going to work. I mean, we're not a computerized society. So, again, there are strange policies coming out of strange places, and then saying people should not move around from midnight to 4 a.m. Okay, what's that about? Are you going to do the same restriction you are doing? Last I checked, the amount of people that are in an enclosed space in a nightclub, it kind of resembles churches and mosques, right? Are you going to say people should not go for prayers? What is the policy consistency? Are we really sure? So the whole thing just comes out in a fragmented manner, and I'm just going to stop there.
Well, Professor Ariole, very quickly, before we take the next break, and we come back to talk about Israel and Palestine.
You know, at the point you are not surveying or monitoring people coming into Nigeria from the entry point, and you are punishing Nigerians who are inside in terms of restricting their movement, and in terms of not allowing them to go for their hand-to-mouth feeding or economic process, and you know you are not going to provide for them in terms of what they call palliative, it's very, very disturbing, quite disturbing. And here again, I want to really challenge our scientists, because we have heard of sequencing of genomes of this virus from either Britain or China, so as to know how benign or malign or wicked or dangerous each strain or each variant is. And we don't seem to have any answer to that in Nigeria at all.
Well, there is a Center for Excellence for the genomics of infectious diseases.
We have not had anything.
Professor Kristen Happy at the Redeemers University in Ede. And it was that particular Center of Excellence that disclosed the presence of the Indian variant in Nigeria.
Yeah, but discovering Indian variant, there must be an African variant, which, on a lighter note, I will explain, must be very, very friendly to Africans, and it's not affecting Africans. So why disturb Africans about what the variant that is more friendly to them? I'm sorry, I'll be talking out of this thing, but somebody should be able to say, look, we have sequenced the genome, and we have 27,000 sequencing we have provided that has to do with the virus in Africa, or 19,000 or thereabout. Like it is done in China, like it is done in Britain. Does it mean we don't have brain to do that? Well, so that we will know where we are going. For now, we are just doing things that have no direction. Planlessness.
Prof, by way of information, we hosted Dr. Iyeku Azu, the head of the National Center for Disease Control, on another program on this station. And he provided information about what the NCDC Nigeria is doing about sequencing in partnership with centers like that of Professor Kristen Happy in Ede. We take a short break on Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show. When we return, the conversation will continue. Stay with us. Welcome back to Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show here on the Arise News channel. Still with me, I have Professor Bola Akintenwa, Professor Victor Ariole, and Dr. Ndidi Nwaneri. Now, before we went on break, Professor Akintenwa, I was going to come to you about this, reimposition of restrictions with regard to COVID-19.
I think government's imposition of new restrictions is a commendable but a non-solution to the problem. Commendable to the extent that they are looking forward to preventing the, Indian variant that is dangerous. It's good, it's commendable, but it's a non-solution. It does not address the issue of unemployment. Government is saying, look, 100 million people will be taken out of jobs. It doesn't address that. It doesn't address the issue of vaccination in terms of a shortage of vaccines. The government talks about disruption. And at the end of the day, my fear is this, just to cut a long story short. I see these new restrictions as an opportunity during the curfew to move troops from one region to the other. Because during the first wave, when there is supposed to be curfew, that was precisely the time people were moving, using trucks, carrying people, and engaging in all illegalities. And I think that with the situational reality of insecurity in the country, the new restrictions may be nothing more than an instrument, all right, to strengthen the president's agenda, which we do not know.
That's not proven. And, I think what you have said may amount to reading motives, which may not really be the reality, in my view. But let's move on.
You see, that's why in my article of today, I talk about hypothesis building in political governance.
Yeah, it's like reading motives in this particular context. Now, Hamas militants in Gaza have fired a new barrage of rockets into Israel overnight. A series of explosions also struck Gaza City with a flash of the blast and the trail of the outgoing rockets lighting up the night sky. It followed a day of dramatic escalation of the conflict that included Israel bombing the home of a senior Hamas leader and destroying a tower block that housed a number of international media organizations. About 145 Palestinians have died since the clashes began 5 days ago, including 41 children and 23 women. Israel says dozens of militants have been killed. Addressing the nation last night, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed that his country will continue to respond forcefully to rocket attacks from Palestinian militants in Gaza.
This week, millions of Israelis as missiles rained down on our cities. Several Israelis have been killed, many more have been wounded. You know, and I know, no country would tolerate this. Israel will not tolerate this. Israel has responded forcefully to these attacks, and we will continue to respond forcefully until the security of our people is reinstated and restored.
Well, Professor Akintenewa, I mean, this is right down your alley. What's going on between Israel and the Palestinians, the Hamas in Gaza? And why is everybody so partisan? What happened to the two-state solution?
There are actually, in principle, two levels of solutions. Most unfortunately, however, what has been happening is conflict management rather than conflict resolution. We should not confuse the two. Partisanship, you cannot rule out, because the foundation of the crisis itself, I didn't say foundation of the conflict, I say crisis, is simply predicated on dishonesty, injustice, unfairness. Simply put, before the conclusion of World War I, you know quite well that the Jews, the Palestinians, were under the Ottoman Empire before the British took over. And the Zionists came to lobby William Balfour then British foreign minister, asking for a land for them to settle on. Agreement was reached on that. In 1948, for instance, a state of Israel was created, but Palestinians do not and did not have by that time. The issue is this: the population of the Palestinians by that time was more than the Jews that were brought together to congregate to create a state for them. Now, the unfairness, the injustice was to the extent that the United Nations partitioned the land 55% to the Jews, to the Israelis, whereas the population, the land inhabited by the Palestinians, they were not given fairness. War broke out. In 1948, the land occupied by the Israelis, they took over by force. 1966, ditto. 1973, People War, the same thing. Now, the solution now has been difficult simply because of what you call partisanship. The United States cannot be a mediator and have partisan interests. Two-state solution, Israel is not complying with it. Israel is permanently engaged in criminal war against, war against humanity, war crimes. It's engaged in that with impunity.
Well, unfortunately, Prof, we have just about 2 minutes to go. I want, Dr. Nwaneri to also say something very briefly about this.
Well, what I'd like to say is, Prof, I appreciate the history behind this. But you see, when you wake up in the morning and you want to go to the market to buy food for your family, there's a day-to-day life dimension of this, and this is where I'm going to go. One of the things I found out is that what led to this last crisis was the fact that apparently the Jews can go to the Supreme Court, and it has to do with property rights, right? The same property rights that the Jews have, the Palestinians don't have it, and they're living under one state. So the least that the Israelis could do is make life relatively equal for the people that are living under their domain. Let me give you an example.
Israel has not done that.
Israel hasn't done that, and that is what has led, and this will keep erupting problems. It will keep, I'm talking about housing I'm talking about homes.
Housing borders.
Right? So that is what triggered this last one, and it's going to keep triggering. And I'm sorry, while we don't want Israel to be exterminated, they have to find a way to live in peace with the people that they met on the land. And that's what I'd like to say about it.
Well, Professor Ariole, we have just 60 seconds to go. Your take on this subject.
Israel is like a word of United Nations. What I mean, the lawyers know what I mean by word. They are still being cared for by United Nations, having been the same process from the Allied connection that brought them there in 1948. They should also be sympathetic of what the Palestinian people are craving for. I so agree. But my worry is that allowing Israel as a nation to declare Israel as a Jewish nation is also a problematic issue that the world should look at. I know the Jewish are haunted by extinction. They are afraid, haven't gone through a lot of persecution everywhere in the world. But there is no need for them to declare Israel a Jewish nation. That, I'm not very conversant or very comfortable with that.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Ariole. Thank you, Dr. Nwaneri. Thank you, Professor Akintenwa. You've been watching Thisdaylive, the Sunday talk show here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati. For my entire team here in Lagos, it's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next Sunday.